When Facebook goes and they says, hey, we want more regulation for data privacy. No, they don't. They want regulation that only they can afford, so the next social media company like Rumble is not able to pay the same that they're able to pay for that sort of data hosting, lawyer fees, and all that sort of stuff.
Charlie Kirk and a completely leftist Marxist agreed on something? What? Is the sky falling? Is the world coming to an end? Nope, none of that, luckily, guys. We just have a case of some genuine common ground being found. And that's a really cool thing. So we're gonna get right into that video, guys. It's gonna be a very fun time. I think you're gonna enjoy it. But first, everybody, please make sure you like our video, comment, and subscribe to the Resist the Mainstream channel so we can keep bringing you this very interesting content. I'm Darian, your host. Let's get right into the show.
Hello.
Hi.
Mr. Kirk. I am welcoming Booze as saying I am a Marxist. I'm very left-leaning, but I'm here to find some common ground with you. Your critiques of the monopolistic tendencies of multinational corporations align very closely with my beliefs as viewing the world through a class lens as being the major axis of inequality in this country.
Yep.
My question is, as a leader of a conservative organization that really condemns large government, how do you address this ever-growing power and these monopolistic tendencies without using the federal government and big government? I just would love to know how you propose to.
That's a good-spirited question. You have read your Marx. Good for you, because some people say they're Marxists and they haven't. So look, I think the Marxists are wrong on a lot. We could talk about that in a second. But the Marxists, their fascination with class is not wrong. And there is a place where class warfare is legitimate and ugly and cruel, and that powerful people are trying to stomp on people that don't have as much as they have. Do I think it's as plain and simple as Marx and Engels put out? No, obviously, that's not my position. But I do think that a bipartisan diagnosis of kind of class issues is something that's very interesting. I'd be curious to get your thoughts as a Marxist of why we talk about race all the time, because that will tell me what kind of Marxist you are, but not right now. So to answer your question, the answer needs to be to try to pursue market-based solutions. Not be afraid to use the government to break up big monopolies like Google. Not be afraid to use antitrust authority. However, understand that sometimes more regulation can actually be a boon and a gift to those mega corporations. For example, when Facebook goes and they says, hey, we want more regulation for data privacy. No, they don't. They want regulation that only they can afford, so the next social media company like Rumble is not able to pay the same that they're able to pay for that sort of data hosting, lawyer fees, and all that sort of stuff. So look, I think we can both agree, though, crony capitalism or cronyism is awful and wrong, and that entrepreneurial bottom-up focused solutions is a beautiful thing. Where we will disagree, though, is that if you are a Marxist, and you seem too sweet to be a Marxist, so I'll put that aside, but do you believe by definition that the entrepreneurial activity will result in exploitation and will result in the concentration of one person benefiting from the other? This is where I disagree. I think a portion of American economic activity, yes, is big companies exploiting or lying to people. But the vast majority of economic activity happening in America is beautiful. It's voluntary exchange of both parties benefiting. It's the local small business serving a meal to somebody in Santa Barbara. It's a local hotel that is able to have somebody with a great experience. It's somebody that starts a taxi cab company to be able to provide for their family. So I think that we bash markets way too over generally, and I would love your thoughts on that. Do you agree that most economic activity in America is probably done voluntarily and is actually beneficial?
Not anymore. I think because so much industry has gone overseas with certain trade agreements,
you're speaking my language.
Usually like very large corporations that dominate employment in America. So I don't think small businesses are doing very well, especially after the pandemic.
No, that's true.
So some very interesting points by Charlie Kirk there. I will say, I think he's kind of evolved on this ideologically, and I mean that as a compliment, not a diss. The same thing has happened to me. What I mean by this is Charlie, I think, used to be much more puritanical in the free market view, and generally, like one of the slogans he'd often push, which I could be wrong on this, I haven't heard it lately, but he would say, the freer the markets, the freer the people. And you know what? I actually agree with that as a general matter. I think that's true. But then this is where the nuance comes in, and you see that nuance with him and with Charlie Kirk and the Marxists talking about this kind of stuff. You look at monopolies, for instance, or oligopolies, whatever you want to call them. Many would argue that's not really a free market. What's an example of this? Well, Charlie mentioned Google, great example. Another one, Facebook. Look how huge they are. Remember when Facebook bought WhatsApp and Instagram? They're getting pretty big and they're pretty powerful. And we don't even need to get into the censorship they've done. I mean, don't forget that they literally banned a sitting US president on essentially the world's largest public square, right? This happened on Twitter at the time, this happened on Facebook, this happened on Instagram. That's some extreme power there, very extreme power. And no one can seriously argue that, well, it's a free market, just go build your own Facebook or something. It'd be ludicrous. So those are all very interesting points that Charlie brings up, and I'm glad he's talking about them, and I think it's cool that him and the Marxists found common ground on that.
I don't think they're doing well, but I think still the volume of economic activity is largely not rooted in exploitation right now in America. What do you think about that?
I agree to disagree.
Okay, got it. So think about that, because I do think that exploitation happens, but largely I think that there still is this amazing foundation of goodness in our markets, of most people that are not trying to game somebody, but instead offer a service, and most people that are willing to trade their value, their time for that other service. And I don't want to lose that. And the Marxists, in its most pure sense, at the eradication of private property, we would lose that. So let me just ask, can we agree on one thing as we close this question out? Break up Google, yes?
Definitely.
All right, we got an agreement. Thanks for being here.
Let's go. They agree on breaking up Google. I love that. You know, Charlie and that girl, as well as myself, might have more in common with all of each other than, frankly, half the Republican Party, at least. I don't know how many, I call them free market extremists, I've talked to within conservative or Republican, libertarian, whatever you want to call it, circles, where they will essentially insist that any private company can do whatever it wants. And they literally say just that. It's a private company. They can do whatever they want. First of all, no one believes that. So can they tell an employee, well, you got to cut off your finger. And if you don't do it, we're going to fire you because we're a private company. No, you'd be ludicrous to argue that. But it's okay. You know, people will use false arguments to push a point. That happens all the time. Such is life. It's human nature. But anyways, real quick, some will say, well, it's not conservative to be against, a big oligarch doing whatever it wants in the so-called free market. Teddy Roosevelt, I would argue, is one of the best conservative presidents we ever had. He very famously broke up the Rockefeller oil as well as the railroads from JP Morgan. That was Teddy Roosevelt, who was a Republican. They don't teach that much in class in history. I wonder why. Well, guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks so much for tuning in. As always, be sure to comment below. Let us know what you liked, what you want to see next, and we'll see you all again soon. Thanks, and God bless.